Hello and welcome to the Sports Chat segment of Morning Express. I'm Robin Toskin, and today in the studio I've got two big gentlemen in Kenyan sport who are going to take us through what happened over the weekend. We are going to talk about matters, Mashemeji Derby, and of course World Athletic Championship in Beijing. Inside our studios we have James Wakabi, sport presenter. He was at the stadium yesterday to cover that game, and of course Mutwiri Mutuota from Capital FM Sports is the editor there. But then first of all, let us get straight into the Mashemeji Derby, where the derby pitting defending champions Gor Mahia against 13 times champions A.F.C Leopards was abandoned at the 65th. You are the guy conducting that interview yesterday. That is Kaunda, the match commentator.
The match.
Yeah, what exactly transpired, Wakabi?
Oh well, it was simple really. Leopards fans, penalty awarded, like you said, straight up penalty. Saleh handles the ball with no one near him. Referee awards penalty, then Leopards fans decide it shall not be taken. So they pelt the goal mouth with projectiles. Their own keeper in danger has to run away from it. Our cameraman has to take cover, and the cops, I guess, tried to control the situation. Wouldn't happen. Half an hour later, Mr. Kaunda said, for the security of the fans, even though we take the penalty or we don't take the penalty, this game would rather be called off.
Those are Kenyan rules where fans decide whether it's a penalty or not a penalty, Mutwiri.
I think it is a very it's a testament of how we have not matured as far as our nation is concerned in terms of football, because first of all, we know that these games are very, very high-tempered. They are always there's a lot of tension, and I think there should be more organization in terms of security, making sure that you know the underlying tensions. Everyone knew for the 1 week, but when we don't have a buffer zone, for example, between A.F.C Leopards and Gor Mahia fans, if you don't, for example, restrict the number of fans that come in, we've seen such games in Egypt and other parts of the world.
Yes.
When you have a high-tempered game and a high-tension game, they do whatever they can just to make sure the game ends, because it's very sad. The players were very okay with each other. It was a good atmosphere, but then again, if a game is caused abandonment, it will only mean that the afters, we have to go back to the boardrooms to decide the result.
Is the name of the derby, you know, misleading? When we talk about Mashemeji Derby, we know in Kenyan parlance, Kiswahili, in-laws.
No, it's not misleading in any way, Toskin. Here's the thing, and I agree with Mutwiri. The problem is not that the fans are passionate. The problem is not that the fans get emotional. The problem is how we contain it. I tell you what, we see Gor and A.F.C and we think fans are passionate. You've been to bigger games in West Africa. You've been to games in Europe. There is passion. It's just how you manage the passion. You think United versus Liverpool doesn't have passion? You think Blackburn versus Burnley doesn't have passion? It has passion.
Yeah.
People can't stand each other, but it's how you control it. It's how you manage it. You have to have a buffer zone. You have to make sure. Even the matchcom himself said, players have no problem with each other. They want to play, but he wasn't happy with the way the police handled it. And he said, I'm not happy with the way they've handled it. I gave suggestions. They didn't listen to it. So really, the passion is great. That's what makes football football. But it's how you handle what happens.
Yeah. Just before we move to athletics, because this was just an introduction, where do we move to? What needs to be done in order to combat this? Since 1968, Gor Mahia A.F.C Leopards, it has always been, you know, high-octane game clashes. Where do we move, Mutuota?
This is a broken chorus. Every time violence happens in Gor Mahia A.F.C games, before, during, or after the game. Why don't we have a situation, for example, like the Manchester Derby, when you have fans coming in from different parts of town, making sure that you're controlling movement? At the end of the day, we have to style up and realize that without having the proper security measures laid in place, this game will always continue being an embarrassment to the nation.
However, Toskin, we've made great moves, because if you think about it, the last time a derby was halted because of crowd trouble was 2012. So 2013, fine. 2014, fine. 2015, first leg, fine. We've had quite a number of games where everything is going on well, but for some reason, Sunday morning just had Sunday afternoon just had something about it, and you would understand. Leopards fans are frustrated, their team not doing so well, but in them stopping the penalty from being taken, who are they hurting the most? They're hurting their own players, because their players, who said it was a certainty it would get scored? No one said it. So they are hurting their own team by stopping it, by refusing the penalty to be taken, supposing they just saved it. And you've got to give kudos to the Green Army, because the Green Army simply sat and watched. And when it was happening, all the Green Army did was sing their anthem and then watch. They didn't get involved into it. They didn't start their own. They just watched.
I guess now the challenge is really on the authorities. Football Kenya Federation and the Kenyan Premier League should actually face this thing head on, and even if it means involving the government, I think that is where they should take it. But then let's move to athletics now, where David Rudisha played a tactical card to qualify for the 800 IAAF World Championship finals, with Nigel Amos of Botswana playing for it by finishing third in super slow time. Rudisha clocked 1 minute 47.70 seconds in a day that saw other Kenyans impress in their fields. Gentlemen, before we get into the Kenyan performance, but then look at that. Usain Bolt beating Gatlin. Gatlin has been under really pressure. He's been called names because of drug cheating and all that. How significant was Usain Bolt's win yesterday?
Well, that was a victory for the sport. That is the general consensus. Even the guys who are in the VIP stands, they cheered that victory more than they would ever cheer. Of course, because at the end of the day, I don't want to imagine the headlines that would have come in had Gatlin won. That is the most significant. They are calling it 0.110 seconds in athletics history, that the good has triumphed over evil.
You share the view?
I want to move away from the whole, like Gatlin said, he hasn't kidnapped anyone, Usain Bolt hasn't saved anyone. So I just look at it from a sporting angle. The fact that Usain Bolt, this was the biggest test since he became Usain Bolt. And everyone was saying, can he do it? He will get beaten. He wasn't favorite, even in betting. Everyone was thinking Gatlin is favorite, but he stepped up and said, like he said in July in London, I'm always number one. And he showed, because his race wasn't great, his semi-final wasn't great, but the ability to deliver when it matters is what makes you stand out from the rest. And he stood up, and the weird thing is Gatlin is the one who choked. Gatlin is the one who stumbled through the last. Gatlin is very, very good. His technique is excellent, but Bolt on the day just had enough.
The Kenyan performance, David Rudisha leading the other two gentlemen into the finals of 800 meters to be run tomorrow. But of course today again we have 3,000 meters steeplechase, 4 guys from Kenya. Does that, you know, soothe the egos of Kenyans after the Saturday debacle in marathon?
Well, when you look at the 4 Kenyans, Kemboi, the defending champions, Kipruto, who won gold in Beijing in 2008, Conseslus Kipruto, his namesake, who was Ford silver, Kemboi to silver, and of course the man they are all tipping to win that thing, Jairus Birech, the Diamond League winner and speedster. When you look at that collection, it's a dream team you can always want to have. The Fantastic Four, they are calling them.
Yes.
But then again, you look at when the great Moses Kiptanui, now retired, tried to win his 4th title in 1997, it was not possible. So it's all like Usain Bolt. It's up to Ezekiel Kemboi now to lay the market and show people who is king today.
You think Kemboi
is already the greatest of all time. He does, even if he doesn't win today. He's won 3 world titles, 3 world silvers, 2 Olympic gold medals. He's the greatest of all time. If he wins today, he just cements it. I don't really care who wins today.
Yes.
So long as Jagger from the US doesn't win it, we saw he can do it in Monaco. So long as he doesn't win it, it can be either of the Kenyans. We just want to hear the national anthem for the first time today.
David Rudisha getting into the finals of 800 meters, was it a significant statement that the boy is back in his element?
Well, David Rudisha, just like Usain Bolt, knows when to do or when to pick or when to do the performance. Before he went to Beijing, he told me, look, I know this season has been hard, I know there are so many things I've been trying to do, but when we get there to Beijing, we shall now try to put together a run that could see him becoming the world champion. Look at what he did yesterday. Amos is used to seeing him go out very fast. He went out, locked the first position, and then motored around, and then, you know, he used his power to finish instead of to ground himself through the laps. So this is somebody who understands the sport, and that is where I think he stands a good chance of reclaiming the title that he won in South Korea.
But not the fastest of times, of course. If you look at the qualifiers, he's about number 7 in qualifying time.
Rudisha doesn't do slow.
Yes.
But this time he was almost too slow. He did the first lap in 54 seconds. Yes. The commentator actually said, Rudisha is jogging. He could be walking around the track. He did something that no one expected him to do, because Amos likes slow races with fast finishes, but then he was too slow for Amos, and then when the race is so slow, it becomes everyone's race. Rudisha showed a side to him that we didn't think he had a month ago when he was beaten at Kasarani. First time as a senior by Ferguson Rotich, and we all wondered what is going on. But this time around he decided, let's first of all do away with a man. with Amos Nigel. Amana was disqualified. So when he's going into the final, he's huge odds-on favorite to win. All of a sudden, everyone is thinking Rudisha just has to show up.
Going into 1500 meters women, we saw yesterday Dibaba, as expected, leading the rest of the qualifiers into the finals. What's happening with our 1500 meters?
Let me tell you, in Faith Chepketich, we have the future of distance running. I've told him many, many times that this young girl, her progression, she does it so quietly, no one notices. But she has been doing a tactic that every time that Dibaba finishes, she's just right one step behind.
Yes.
Okay, we know that Dibaba has undoubted quality, but on the day anything can happen. And it's good to have someone who is right there to take advantage in case maybe the favorite doesn't come through. And you notice that when she was training for the World Championships, the other two girls, Nancy and Viola, who ended up in the semi-finals and the heats, they were training the way you'd say Sifa Hassans and all that. They have not been good enough like what we've seen from Faith and Dibaba. And that finishing order could be what will happen in the podium unless, like the commentator said, she has a lot left in her tank. She could maybe cause the hugest upset.
But if we get a silver, will that be a bad result for Kenya?
It would be perfect because Faith is, what, 20 now?
20, yeah.
Yeah, she's still young. She's really, really young. So she's just growing. She went to London. Then there was Moscow. Then now there is this. We just have to give her time because, like Muturi says, she's a lot younger. The person who should be competing against Genzebe and pushing her should be Mercy Cherono. So Faith is jumped down a few stages. Faith is pushing her. Whatever Faith does in the final, that's great. If she surprises her, that's great. It reminds me of Messeret and Vivian Cheruiyot. For so long, Messeret was always the star and Vivian was always hanging around. Then towards the end, Vivian started finding a way of beating Messeret. So hopefully, as Faith hangs on, if not in the final, in Rio or in London in 2017, Faith will have found a way past Genzebe.
Maybe we've not talked about this much, exactly what happened with our marathon guys, because we had the strongest team going into that final. A world record holder, former world record holder, and a Paris marathon champion. What exactly happened, Mutwiri?
My friend always mentions that every time we take a star-studded cast to a marathon, we never do it, especially when it is the circuit stars. Look at it this way. The first world champion was Douglas Wakihori. The second world champion was Luke Kibet. The third and fourth world champion from Kenya was Albert Kirui. These are hardly guys who illuminated the time charts, and they did not illuminate the big marathons, except maybe Douglas at the time. So we notice that, I don't know, when we take big guys, I don't know whether it's the sense of the occasion or they are not used to running in championship races because there's no pacemaking. Let's start with that. But then again, you ask yourself, Wanjiru was a circuit marathoner. How comes he managed to go to Beijing and set an Olympics record? So I think it has to do with the kind of athletes we choose and also the mentality of the runners involved. Yeah,
just as I wrap up, Wakabi, exactly, going into today's races, we've talked about the male performance and 1500 meters women. What about 3000 meters, just as we wrap up?
Well, the steeplechase for women, the defending champion Milka Chemos is not there. So we are hoping on a lady who started the season as a pacemaker, Nyambura. Then all of a sudden she's found something and she's one of the favorites to win. You have Rose Flynn, who's also a youngster, just like Faith, just trying to navigate her way into the seniors. Then you've got Hiving, who is hiving, not really at the top, not really at the bottom. You never know. It's a really open race. There is some lady, I know that she's from Romania or from Tunisia, who all of a sudden started running really great. So not too confident about it, but you never know. Once again, it's one of those races no one thought Virginia would do in the first race in Doha. She won and she's been unbeatable. Just a word on the marathon. The Kenyan men, and I say this all the time, you go out there and run hard from minute one. Anytime Kenyans try to strategize, try to think, try to calculate, when the race is 6 minutes slower than what Wanjiru did in Beijing in 2008, it becomes everyone's race. They should have gone there and simply gone flat out. We saw it London women 2015. They said the same thing. They kept watching each other. What will happen? What will happen? They gave it away. The men simply gave it away. They watched each other too much. Then they all dropped out. Really, really sad.
Thank you, gentlemen, for coming through and help us, dissect through all the topics that happened over the weekend. James Wakabi, thank you very much from Supersport, and Mutwiri Mutota from Capital FM, sports editor. Viewers, we've come to the end of sports segment of Morning Express. But again, just get yourself a copy of the Standard newspaper and then go through the program for athletes today and ensure that you watch this afternoon javelin thrower, that is Julius Diego, doing his thing at the Bird's Nest Stadium in China. I've been your presenter, Robin Toskin. Until next week.